Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar about HeiQ Cool, dual action cooling for textiles. My name is Raquel Romero. I am Digital Marketing Manager at HeiQ and will be guiding you through this webinar today. First off, we'll have 30 minutes of presentations, followed by 15 minutes of questions and answers. You can ask questions by pushing the Q&A button, so please use that function, do not use the chat. And then we'll do our best to answer all questions at the end after the presentations. Now, let me introduce you to our two speakers. First off, we have Raquel Vieira. Wave to the crowd.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Raquel is CEO of HeiQ Iberia. She manages brand relations and technical support in the Iberian region. She also co-develops HeiQ innovations in HeiQ Iberia's new innovation hub. She's experienced in phase change materials, PCMs, thermoregulation, microencapsulation. She has a bachelor's degree in chemistry, a master's degree in functional textiles, and another master's degree in executive innovation. So ask her all the technical questions you want, she will be able to answer. Okay, next up we have Lee Howarth.
Everyone.
Lee, hello. Lee is our Vice President of Strategic Marketing Textiles at HeiQ. He has over 30 years of experience in the textile industry on international assignments in Europe, the USA, and Asia. He also places a high value on textile finishing effects. He's very passionate about it, especially if they are built on strong sustainability principles to reduce impact in textile manufacture, as well as during the consumer phase. So now I will hand over to Lee to start the presentations.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Raquel, for the lovely introduction. And good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. And as Raquel said, one of my roles here, I work in the strategic marketing team here at HeiQ. And really what I try and do fundamentally here is to try and understand a little bit more in detail consumer needs, in particularly the unmet consumer needs. And ultimately, at some point in time, support in translating those needs through delivery of differentiated technologies that essentially add value to the consumer, meets those consumer demands through application on textiles and garments. So again, just a quick thank you for joining today. I appreciate it's a commitment on everybody's time. I'm sure everybody's this point is zoomed out, but I think hopefully you'll find this short discussion not only interesting but thought-provoking, where we're going to look a little bit more closely at the demand for cooling textiles and ultimately where that demand is actually needed. And that's going to lead us nicely into the introduction to HeiQ Cool, our new innovation, the world's first dual action approach to cooling, where Raquel, who is an expert in the field of thermal regulating technologies, will walk us through it in a little bit more detail about this exciting new technology and how that is substantiated. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So that's the first technical challenge of the day I need to navigate. So hopefully you are able to see my screen now. So as normal, I'll just a few slides just to quickly introduce HeiQ for those of you that may not be so familiar with the company. But in essence, we kind of like to think of ourselves as an innovator, but in a disruptive and a sustainable way. We position ourselves clearly as a leader in textile innovation, creating some of the most innovative, effective, durable, high-performance textile technologies on the market today. But really, we are essentially a three-in-one company. On the one hand, we're doing scientific research, and this happens through a unique approach, a kind of boundless network of research partners, whether it's universities and institutes around the world. And really that allows us to be in a novel position of being the creator of these chemistries and leader of creation of these novel chemistries going forward. On the other hand, we are a textile manufacturer, textile chemical manufacturer particularly, or a materials manufacturer more these days. And we service the textile industry and manufacture in those key producing regions around the world. And finally, and probably very importantly, this is something that the company are very, very famous for, is their ability to help bring that technology and the value of that technology to the consumer. I think this is something that the company excel in. So effective consumer ingredient branding, and really we're able to deliver a added value to the consumer in a tangible, coherent way. We're a relatively new company. For those of you not familiar with us, we were born on a hike in 2005, and the back end of 2020, December 2020, we were listed publicly on the London Stock Exchange. We are now over a global company with over 200 people worldwide. And really, I think we're recognized as being an innovation powerhouse. That's built on 6 technology platforms and IPs, and that allows us to create some of these are most high-performing textile technologies that we see in the industry today. And as I say, we're also a company that really differentiates. We really stand out in the industry from our ability to support with ingredient branding, a strong ingredient branding platform. And that's innovating from the lab to consumer. And we're doing that with over 300 brand partners worldwide. But pioneering sustainable materials is at the core essence of what we want to do, or what we try and do. So functionality, bringing functionality, improving the lives of billions of people, and adding sustainability. And these are the key drivers in our sustainability and innovation efforts. And here we see some examples of those innovation efforts over recent years, with a heavy focus on recycled materials, the use of recycled materials, the use of an increased use of bio-based renewable technologies, and embracing circularity principles where we can. And all of these really to help support the industry's collective efforts to reduce impact in the manufacture and use of textiles. So really in the field of sustainable development, we'd like to be seen as a kind of co-creator, a connector between academic research and the needs of the B2B and B2C markets. And what that allows us to do is really provide a whole range of materials that meet these consumer needs and improving every moment of life. So whether that's cooling, warming, filtering, purifying, and more recently stopping viruses, HeiQ have a solution and solutions to support those needs. So let's get into the topic for today, a little bit more about the issue of cooling, and specifically cooling textiles. And what I'd like to do here is have a closer look at how functionalization of garments or textiles can provide a tangible cooling effect for the user. And we'll see that is very much in line with the real consumer needs. And we talk here of consumer needs around enhancing comfort through function and durability. And it's an interesting market here because the predictions are showing a huge growth in this segment, and this market is already worth over $2 billion a year, and that's been partly driven by an ongoing expansion in demand, particularly in the sports and activewear area. And certainly from HeiQ's perspective, we can help validate that and verify that with the continued growth and success of our HeiQ Smart Temp technology, which has been developed specifically for the activewear industry and activewear applications. But look, there are other drivers such as climate change, no doubt, mass urbanization, changing lifestyles are all having an impact on driving this need. And therefore, companies such as HeiQ, such as ourselves, we are really committing to investing in developing the next generation technologies that really provide the consumer the benefit that they're looking for. But increasingly, this need is not only limited to sports apparel, but also, for example, protective wear, firefighters' uniforms, military applications that really help provide enhanced levels of comfort to the wearer where they may be exposed to excessive heat or under stressful conditions. But today, however, we're going to look a little bit more specifically into the application of these kind of technologies in home textiles and try and understand a little bit more about why we see significant growth potential here too. So let's start with a little bit of sort of science behind the sleep. And sleep, no doubt, is essential, and I think we're all recognize it's essential for all of us in terms of energy conservation and recovery. But really, a good night's sleep is something we all need. and we all enjoy having, and certainly I do, but we're increasingly finding it difficult to achieve. And the science is telling us in order to get a good night's sleep, it's generally accepted that you need to lose about 1 degree of body temperature. So of course, in the summer, when the temperature in our bedrooms is relatively high or is higher, we of course find it much more difficult to fall asleep. We toss, we turn, we fidget, ultimately we have fragmented sleep. So the quality of sleep that we achieve is directly linked to the skin and core body temperature. But the question is, why is that the case? Well, again, it's widely accepted that a drop in core body temperature is a signal for our bodies to prepare for sleep. And this is a deeply ingrained characteristic which is common across a number of mammals. So in the run up to sleep, the body temperature starts to fall, and this is linked to a reduction in the time it takes to fall asleep. Conversely, on the other hand, increases in core temperature when we get hotter during sleep, and this certainly during sleep, this appears to have a direct influence and promote waking. So finally, what the body really wants is a consistent, cool, not necessarily cold, but a consistent cool temperature, keeping your skin temperature perfectly comfortable, and this is absolutely essential when it comes to maintaining a deep, restful sleep. And we're seeing this as part of an interesting trend taking place. And certainly since the pandemic started, consumers and we're all investing more in enhancing the comfort throughout our homes. And we see this particularly on textiles with an increase in various functional treatments that are being requested for home textiles. And we see this particularly for a strong desire in functional and sustainable products across a number of different product categories in home textiles. And actually, this has been backed up with research that was conducted actually pre-pandemic that showed consumers are really looking for these treatments. So for example, 55% of consumers are looking for some kind of thermal regulation function in their bedding products, for example. And not surprisingly, if we're spending 1/3 of our entire life sleeping, then certainly there's no reason why we wouldn't want to invest in products that help promote a good night's sleep. But we're seeing this market trend towards functionality continue to increase in the home, in particular across multiple product categories, towels, sheets, beddings, for example, here. And even a number of years back, we see a distinct increase in the percentage of products marketed with a performance technology over the past few years. And again, I think we're going to continue to see this trend going forward. So clearly, consumers are demanding thermal regulation in a various range of categories here. And that's really driven by the ability to deliver improved function to the wearer, whether that's thermal function or moisture management comfort. And this is an area actually HeiQ have focused on heavily over the last 15 years, the entire existence of the company, delivering solutions in this area. So we're seeing this demand is very strong across many product categories, not only home textiles, but also into apparel and business wear, and of course in activewear and sportswear. But interestingly enough, we are seeing a trend that the consumer is willing to pay more for it, up to 18 to 20% for products where those attributes are actually incorporated. So I think these are some really interesting metrics, which clearly indicate a strong consumer need and expectation across different product categories, but a clear willingness to pay for that functionality. So the question is how these needs can be addressed and how those are addressed today. Well, we can kind of summarize that by there is a number of various thermal comfort technologies for fabrics on the market that claim the ability to achieve improved thermal comfort. And these essentially are based on one of 3 physical mechanisms of energy exchange. So melting energy action, and this is typical for a PCM material being a phase change material. So what happens there is as the wax material in the PCM heats up and melts, this results in a transfer of the latent energy from the skin, providing the wearer or the contact a perceivable cool sensation. The challenge we have here fundamentally with the technology is that once this exchange takes place, the cooling effect is practically over, or at least it's over until the energy is transferred once more and the process starts all over again. So this is kind of instantaneous cooling effect only. Another option is solution energy action, where the substance such as menthol or xylitol is dissolved in a solution, and it's this dissolved solution where you get a thermal interaction taking place, and that can be either release or changing energy to give you the perceived cooling effect. The main challenge with this kind of approach is essentially wash durability, or having an effect that lasts the lifetime of the textile product or garment. And then finally, we have a vaporizing energy action approach. And this is much more aligned and similar naturally to human physiology. And this is where we perspire, we sweat in order to cool ourselves down. So as sweat emerges from our body onto the skin, the evaporation of that sweat on the skin is what essentially cools us down. And this is not just a perceived cooling effect, but an actual tangible, measurable effect. So really there are positives and benefits when it comes to looking at all those technologies. But if we look specifically at the melting energy action, we see some, really some significant downsides of the currently available conventional treatments, including, for example, the short cooling effect, this instantaneous cooling effect, the impact on fabric aesthetics, application complexity, cost, no doubt, and toxicity, all essentially limiting the use of that technology today. So the question is, what is the solution? And that brings us nicely to introducing to you the HeiQ Cool dual action cooling. And I think at this point, I'm going to hand over to Raquel, who's going to walk us through this exciting new technology and showing us how this is working, how we substantiate that. So over to you, Raquel. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Hello, everyone. So I will be very glad to present our HeiQ Cool, our dual action cooling. After intensive research with our customers, with our consumers, we bring a technology that is unique in the market as deliver both, right? Instantaneous contact cooling and continuous evaporative cooling for comfort, for longer, for optimal well-being. How do we achieve that? We achieve that through two mechanisms. The first one, we will have the melting energy. So through our vegetable oil used in a HeiQ Cool, we will be able to absorb the heat, right? And the fabric will be able to cooling down, and that's why we will have instantaneous coolness at the point of sale. And then it will be followed by vaporizing energy action. Why? Because always we have humidity on our skin, and we will only be comfortable if that humidity will be released and evaporated as fast as possible. So it really mimics the skin's natural regulation system. So that's really the ideal for a continuous cool and comfort. This is achieved by HeiQ patented hydrofunctional polymer. So basically we have the two mechanisms, repeating again, first the melting energy absorption action, which allows to give instantaneous cooling through the bio-based vegetable oil, and then through the responsive polymer we can have a continuous evaporative cooling. This is really a proactive approach in order to delay as much as possible the overheating and prolong and extend as much as possible the comfort and cooling feeling. Lee, please. So going into the melting energy absorption action. So normally when we are in the normal comfort zone on the cooling environment, the bio-based vegetable oil will not act. It's a smart technology, of course, so it will only act when the temperature will increase, and it will absorb the heat, and then we will have, of course, a feeling of coolness. And this is really for the instantaneous cooling in order to avoid to start to sweat So that's really the tangible value here, that you really feel the coolness at the point of sales when you touch the fabric. Lee, please. Then it will be followed by the vaporizing energy action. As said, humidity is a very crucial factor and parameter when we speak about thermoregulation. If we have humidity, then we will feel even hotter. So it's so important that the humidity is released away from the fabric and also is evaporated as quick as possible to mimic our natural way of cooling down. This is really need to be a combined system in order that we have the feeling of a continuous cooling. So thanks to the hydrofunctional polymer, that is a responsive polymer that has different affinities with moisture at different temperatures, we can get this fast evaporation, and then the sweat will be evaporated, and then we'll have this cooling and for longer, right? So we see here at cooling temperature, the hydrofunctional does not react. Then when the temperature increasing, when we really need it, the polymer will release all the water and evaporate it from our skin, giving a perceivable coolness. Thank you, Lee. So how we can substantiate those two claims, instantaneous coolness and a continuous cooling. So we have here an example of a test done by an external institute, in this case was SGS, where it was treated and untreated, submitted samples, where we drop a warm water in order to simulate the sweat. And then we are able to see on the first seconds that we have immediately reduction of the temperature, which really is explained by the vegetable oil, which absorbs the heat. And then it's followed by the continuous evaporative cooling, where we really have the evaporation of the moisture. And then, of course, the temperature will drop, and then we have the coolness feeling. So this graph really exemplifies very well how HeiQ Cool works. So basically, the technology, and just to summarize, we start cool thanks to the bio-based vegetable oil that absorbs the heat very quickly when we need it, very proactive before we start to sweat, and then we continue cooler due to our hydrofunctional polymer, which will be able to evaporate the moisture as quick as possible in order that we have the continuous cooling. As soon as we are in cooling and comfort, we don't need anymore those technologies, so we will be in comfort zone. That's what we want to extend as much as we can. So how these can be tested? The ideal is always the wear trial. We will be very glad to provide some t-shirts or other materials working with you that you can really try the technology by yourself and really feel the continuous cooling. There are some analytical testing that we will provide to our partners in order really that you are able to quantify how much your fabric is able to absorb through the DSC based on a standard 16806, which really gives you the quantification of the melting and how much the fabric is able to absorb the heat. Then on continuous cooling, we have our HeiQ dynamic evaporation test. We really characterize evaporation properties when we need it. So at high temperature, we will be able to verify the quantity of the water that is evaporated through the fabric. And then the well-known Qmax cooling test. This is also based on a well-known standard. And this test is really to try to simulate and having an objective measurement to quantify how much we feel cool when we touch fabrics. So it's like the feeling of touching a metal or touching wood it feels completely different. It's related to thermal conductivity as well. So this gives a very good value of the cooling sensation we have when we touch the fabric. So SJS and Intertech can provide these values to you and really give you the differentiation on untreated and treated with HeiQ Cool treatments. Thank you, Lee. So this is just an example for you to see. In this case is a cotton woven treated with HeiQ Cool PRT. This is a product targeted for printing applications, where we can see that the initial value we target here is really on high level cooling, and then after washes we can still keeping the optimum cooling. This is really just an example of the kind of technical support and reports and data that we will receive. And then, yes, Lee, you can go to the other one. Yes. We have here an example of the Kimax cooling test. This is a very good one because it's from an end product. So everything was validated here, and it was done at the SGS, and we received the report where it shows a clear, a high value on the cooling, 0.4. Normally, this standard that qualifies on Kimax says that for wovens, it should be above 0.2. Although after testing, we consider that with HeiQ Cool, we can be at higher values and retain also a very good optimum cooling after 20 washes. So this is also an external report we have received from end products treated with HeiQ Cool printed technology. So this is really the examples I would like to show to you and I will be, of course, fully available for all the technical questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel. Thanks for sharing that with us. So I'm going to wrap up for a few minutes now, and then hopefully it gives us some time to answer some of your questions. But I think it's important we understand a little bit about this technology in terms of where we believe is the appropriate end use and appropriate applications. So we really see, clear suitability, particularly in the home textiles arena around bed linen, bedding accessories, mattress ticking, of course, mattress protectors. But I think we shouldn't be just limiting our thoughts to those kind of products, but also in apparel, particularly bottom weights, particularly everyday apparel or business wear apparel, where for example in more hot, humid climates, again, helping to promote the overall comfort and the aesthetic for the consumer. So we certainly see some great opportunity for the use of these technologies there. Of course, going back to what I mentioned before, as with all HeiQ technologies, the ability and the support what we can provide there to help communicate this value proposition, these benefits to the consumer is very important. So we have a suite of tools available that will allow you to effectively communicate that to your customer, primarily through the online to offline to online hang tag. Again, what the consumer can do there is really get a feel for what is that technology by simply scanning the QR code, and that takes them directly to this nice little graphical short video to explain the technology and what's the benefit for you as the consumer. So really some real substance there in terms of telling the story on an emotional level. But also we see more and more, particularly for high-end products, the use of permanent labels, again, to continue to reiterate the message, to remind the consumer of the value that this technology brings and the extra value of the product. And this is, for example, the sewing labeling that can take place. But again, I think effective communication here to the end user is critical. But not least, as with all HeiQ ingredient branding programs, we have a very clearly defined partner licensing program, and now HeiQ Cool is also included in that program. So there are certain requirements that we request for the use of these collaterals, these materials for and access to the HeiQ ingredient branding portfolio. So essentially a license has to be put in place as the first step. We need to have the mill certified and the brand partners certified. Ultimately, the fabric has to be tested. It's important that the fabric performs according to the specifications and standards that we outline to qualify for the HeiQ Cool technology. And again, that's also in line with appropriate product labeling claims. And again, this is something that we continue to support and can support extensively on with regards to those consumer claims. So really, again, this is very much in line with continuing to develop sustainable solutions. You know, as Raquel outlined, this is a bio-based technology, contains more than 50% bio-based content. This has been certified. All these products are certified for USDA bio-preferred status. And essentially, these are non-petroleum based chemicals, so which means there's a direct or reduced environmental footprint impact there for the use of chemistry. It also saves time in the drying process during finishing. So for the processor itself, at least compared to conventional PCMs, these are hydrophilic emulsions versus what would be conventional paraffin-based PCMs, where we see this is more hydrophobic. So we get a much better enhanced quick drying property, and as a consequence, a reduction in the drying time in the processing stage. So really, to summarize, this new HeiQ Cool product family consists of 3 products. One product for pad, as Raquel mentioned, the HeiQ Cool PAD 01, one for print and foam application, the PRT 01, and another one specifically intended for the US market. But what that gives us is a very broad platform and opportunity to achieve this revolutionary dual action effect on a broad range of end uses and applications. So ultimately, we get a significantly cooler fabric temperature whilst uniquely enhancing this thermal and moisture comfort of the textile. And that really provides the consumer not only tangible cooling sensation at point of sale and in use, but importantly for the lifetime of the textile product. So all of this, with these additional benefits of being more sustainable, more safer chemistry, really makes the HeiQ Cool innovation a significant product introduction, and hopefully that's helping and going a significant way to continue to meet these consumer needs today and tomorrow. So I think with that pretty much brings us right up to the end of the presentation. I think directly on time. So I think with that, I think we can go ahead, and maybe Rahel, if you have some questions for Raquel and myself, we should have some time.
Yeah, there are already some questions coming in. To start you off with is some go into more detail on that point, but there are a few questions about what is the difference between this new HeiQ Cool and our HeiQ Smart Temp. So
maybe I can take that, Raquel, and maybe you can support it with a bit more of a technical argument if you like. But look, I think we see this as very much complementary to HeiQ Smart Temp. HeiQ Smart Temp was developed a number of years ago specifically for the activewear, sportswear, industry sportswear applications, and we do see use and applications of that outside of that field. But really, what we're trying to do there is to use the sweat, the coming from the human body to help trigger this evaporative cooling process, or significantly enhance the evaporative cooling process. This gives us a really continuous cooling effect. What we don't get with that, of course, is an instantaneous cooling. You don't sense that on a fabric when you touch the fabric. So what we're trying to address here with HeiQ Cool is this perceivable cooling sensation, coupled with this longer lasting continuous effect. So really bringing those two elements of those two technologies together to really give this, as we see on screen there, starting cool but staying cool concept for the wearer. Okay, hopefully that explains it simply, but maybe
it does. Yeah. So, and going on a bit into the technical side, the PCMs are encapsulated. What type of encapsulation and what would be the quantity of washing cycles that it can withstand? I think that's for Raquel.
Yeah. So the vegetable oil is protected. We, of course, there are some trade secrets, of course, but what we can say is that there is no formaldehyde derived products used here. Then in terms of washing durability, we tested after 20 washes, and we have almost 70-80% retention for the fabrics, but is of course dependent a little bit on the fiber composition and structure. Of course, normally the washes are at 40 degrees. If there is other requirements, then of course we do tailor-made washing for according the requirements of different needs.
Okay, thank you very much. Going to the next question. Is the new HeiQ cooling only for printed applications, or can we pad on knits in the finishing stage?
So we have 3 products. We have HeiQ NFL. This is really targeted for foam coating applications. Then we have HeiQ Cool PRT. This is targeted for printing applications. And then we have the HeiQ Cool Path 01, which is really targeted for padding applications and also for exhaustion. So it is possible to do the 2, path and also exhaustion.
Okay, thank you very much. Brings me to the next question. What are the most suitable fabrics or articles for this treatment?
Yeah, I can take that one. So I think we kind of alluded to it a little bit in the presentation, but clearly, you know, we see a big opportunity there in the home textiles arena, particularly anything that's helping supporting sleep and supporting a microclimate for the wearer or the user. So I think certainly the application in home textiles, we see a very strong fit there. But again, I think clearly opportunities in apparel, you know, not necessarily, you know, sports apparel or activewear apparel, where we maybe the smart temp technology platform may be more appropriate. But I think we certainly would see some opportunity there, particularly things like bottom weights or formal wear, or also, as I said at the beginning, you know, protective wear, you know, where maybe the wearer is in more stressful conditions, are exposed to heat and so forth. And again, this certainly will help support protection and comfort. So I think there's multiple applications there that we can certainly consider now.
Okay, thank you very much. There's multiple questions about application. So one is, can the technology be sprayed directly onto the clothing? Others are, can it be used in padding? Maybe just, I think you mentioned it already, but maybe just quickly go over this point again. How can it be applied? Directly on clothing and padding, exhaust?
Exactly, as a finishing application, the traditional padding and dry and cure application, a traditional exhaustion application, a traditional printing application. The spray is possible, but spray is not the preferred way to do it, because we know how irregular can be spray sometimes. So if we want to have the effect more at the surface of the fabric, then we should go for foam coating application, or then we go for printing application, where uniformity and fixation are also improved with those processes, and we still have the savings of water and drying time and so on, due to the fact that we apply more at the surface.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a few questions that are about the look and feel of the fabric. So does it change the look or feel of the fabrics?
Yeah, that really was one of the challenges, taking consideration that HeiQ is very strong on apparel, right? It was really a clear challenge. This cannot really affect aesthetics. So we have been working hard in order to have minimum impact on aesthetics. So the hand feel is good, the appearance should be good, so that there is a clear minimum no impact. The sample should be as soft as a normal treated with a softener application.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there another question? Is it several about fibers? Is it okay for polyester, etc.? So here's one that's a bit about everything. Is the performance similar in all fibers? So is it the same, or what's the best textile?
of course, we know that for cooling, there are already some fibers that feels cool naturally more than others, right? If we compare cotton to polyester, of course, you will be noticed a more intensive cooling on cellulosic derived fibers compared to polyester, but you can also feel a significant added value when you compare an untreated with untreated in case of polyester, for example. So it works very well on cellulosics, on synthetics, blends. The only fiber that, of course, is always the most challenged one is also polyethylene or polypropylene. But even though the technology is so, in terms of easy to apply on those, and we don't need really high temperatures for curing, that you can even apply the technology on top of polypropylene or polyethylene fibers.
Okay, thank you very much. Here's another technical question. Can it be combined with other functional finishes like stain release or antimicrobial?
Yes, it can be combined. We just need, of course, as always, right, to do a quick test before in terms of compatibility, and then it can be perfectly combined with other functionalities. We did already some bulk trials there.
Here's a challenging one, actually. I'm not sure this works. Can this technology be combined with HeiQ Eco Dry?
Maybe we can do by applying on different fabric sides, right? So now with some foam coating application and printing application, we can really having the two technologies applied on the two fabrics, but of course needs further testing to understand the impact.
Yeah, you're right. I think the potential is yes, but I think that the logic is would not be to put those two together because it's kind of contradictory forces in some ways. So if we could, of course, with the coating, the printing and the coating, the foam coating option, then we can do one side potentially with the HeiQ Cool, and then the outer layer, let's say, to repel stains, can be treated with the Eco Dry. So in theory, yes, probably would need some further fine tuning and iterations to do that, but in principle that should work. But not together on the same layer. I think that would be a little bit of a conflict of interest.
Yeah, hydrophilic and hydrophobic on one doesn't work together.
It doesn't kind of work.
Then it would be difficult.
Okay, going for the next question. What is the benefit of bio-based? So it's a vegetable oil. What's the difference versus the traditional PCMs?
The vegetable oil, of course, it's safer with clear environment benefits when we compare it with paraffins derived from petroleum, right? And of course, the impact into the landfill is different, right, from one to the other, where the vegetable oil, it can be biodegradable. So it's in terms of footprint, sustainability is completely different.
Okay, thank you very much. Here's one. Is the bio-based claim tested and proved?
Yes. Yeah, I think I mentioned that all the products have been certified for bio content as well, but they have the bio preferred status according to the USDA, US Department of Agriculture. So again, they qualify for that standard at a relatively high level. So I think in each of the cases there, we can validate and confirm through independent testing that's the case.
Okay, let's go further. There's a very technical one. Let's see, to close up maybe. How is it for thermofunctional polymer recharged? So how is it recharged?
I think I lost a little bit. Okay. Lee, do I take it or you take it?
I didn't actually catch it because I lost the connection. Maybe you can repeat the question,
me
Raquel.
too, a little bit.
Sorry, it's about the thermofunctional polymer that discharges and then recharges. So how is it recharged?
Exactly. So normally the phase change materials that have the ability to melt, they need to do that by increasing the temperature for being able to melt, and then they need to have a drop on temperature to be able to solidify and then be able to melt again. And this is one of the biggest challenge on the phase change materials. That's why we have the best of the two worlds. We have the hydrofunctional polymer that the fact that evaporates the moisture as quick as possible is allowing a drop on temperature, and then the bio-based vegetable oil is able to melt again and doing the process in a reversible and long way. Because otherwise, if you still keep the humidity, the temperature and the perception is even hotter, right? And then it's not allowing the bio-base to recharge again. So for having a long-term coolness, you need to have both.
Okay, thank you very much. This actually, we reached the end of our webinar. It's yeah, that was the last question. So people who ask their questions with their names, we will write to you after this webinar. So even if your question wasn't answered now, we will get back to you. And this is the first webinar in 2022. We will be holding other webinars about various textile and material innovation topics. We look forward to seeing all of you again. So thank you all very much for joining, and see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.